Monday, the conversation around the trade war changed. Did it ever? Donald Trump didn't float another trial balloon. He attached a deadline.
Last night, the Canada tariffs. One, are those a response to the wildfires in?
No, that's separate. We're looking at that separately.
And what is there anything Canada?
It's only a response to the way they've treated our farmers and our people. Canada's been very, very tough on us over the years, for many years, and no other president's done anything about it. I love Canada. I love the people of Canada. Many friends that live in Canada, but their leadership, from Trudeau to the current leadership, I mean, in all fairness to them, they need us to survive. Without us, there's no way they can survive. But they've been very, very tough over a period of the last 50 years, actually.
Now, if these tariffs take effect on August 19th, every government, every exporter, and every investor will have decisions to make long before the first tariff is collected.
In April of 2025, as you know, the president embarked on a new trade policy really designed at reshoring manufacturing production to the United States and getting the trade deficit down after exploding for decades. Of all the countries, and we imposed tariffs on all the world at varying levels, of all the countries who retaliated against the United States, one was the People's Republic of China and the other was Canada. Some of the things they did is they banned the sale of U.S. liquor and other booze on Canadian shelves. They capped and limited the amount of autos that could be shipped to the United States from companies who were reshoring to the U.S. And they also continued to maintain limited space for market access for U.S. dairy. But importantly, they give other countries better deals on each of these three issues. And so it was a natural consequence after a year of these measures being in place, and longer in the case of dairy, for the president to take action. These are responses to this retaliation. We've been asking for a year for the Canadians to remove these, to modify them, to adjust them. They haven't done that. And so we have a tailored action that covers a subset of Canadian goods. We aren't banning the goods like the Canadians have banned American alcohol. We're not putting a cap on them or limiting them like they've done to cars and dairy. But we have a tariff, which is, again, is a natural consequence of the Canadian retaliation, which has endured for a long time. Well, the Canadians have always been willing to engage, if engagement means talking and meeting. We've done that. I've done that. I have a good relationship with my counterparts there. When he talks about these proposals, I won't go into detail because I want to respect the confidentiality. But what I will say is the proposals are generally for promises to discuss these issues, which we're already doing, not to actually change these things. They talk about collaboration on energy. We've never had tariffs on Canadian energy. We've always been open to that and that kind of exploration. So the types of things that have been in these proposals have always been, let's talk, let's keep trading in energy, things we already do, things that do not fundamentally commit to resolve these issues, maybe just talk about them some more. And for us, we want them fixed.
Prime Minister Carney's response was measured in tone.
Yesterday, the United States announced the intention in 30 days, to launch the latest, what is a series of trade actions against Canada in violation of our agreement, CUSMA, with the United States and Mexico. And I want to put this in a bit of perspective, then answer a couple of questions. The first is that in response to these actions, this began over 18 months ago. Canadians from coast to coast to coast have stood together. The federal government, provincial government, labor, business, Canadians themselves, uniting, focusing on what we can control, building strength here at home, supporting each other, buying Canadian, and diversifying partnerships abroad. We've signed more than 20 economic and security partnerships internationally. Throughout this time, we have made a series of comprehensive and detailed proposals about how to modernize CUSMA, recognizing the transition that the U.S. is underway in the international and all its trading relationships, including with Canada and Mexico. I spoke with President Trump earlier this morning. We agreed to intensify negotiations in the coming weeks, and the team and myself look forward to doing that. As always, Canadians, governments, business, labor will stand together to build Canada strong and to have a trading relationship with our North American partners that benefits everyone.
Now, this all happened as the premiers were gathering in Charlottetown for their annual meeting.
We can't keep rolling over for President Trump. We can't back down. We need a full Team Canada approach. Everything is on the table, but Ontario can't do it alone. We need the support. We need a plan from the Prime Minister to come in, and if these talks fail in 29 days, we need to hit them back as hard as we can. I'm tired of the bully trying to take our lunch money all the time. We always seem to be on our back heels. We need to be on the offense.
We will take the time to review the different measures that have been put forward by the Trump administration. As you know, I will defend and protect Quebec's economy, Quebec's workers, Quebec businesses until the end. And the supply management is something that is non-negotiable.
Now, to recap, Eddie, Trump has dramatically escalated trade pressure with proposed 50% tariffs on a range of Canadian goods unless a new trade agreement is reached. Ottawa is projecting confidence, though, while the negotiations continue, but provinces and industries are already calculating the potential damage. The real question now isn't whether this is political theater, it's whether business can believe the threat. And let's have a quick look here at what some of that threat is overall. Okay, so these are the most exposed Canadian industries under this 50% tariff threat that we are facing. Chemicals, plastics, and synthetics. Why? Well, this sector makes up the single largest share of the targeted goods in the $28 billion package. Exposure, well, the Canadian petrochemical and polymer plants rely heavily on integrated North American supply chains. A 50% duty instantly destroys profit margins for chemical intermediates and finished plastics exported across the border. Okay, then we have the forestry and wood products. Again, they've been taking it over the years to a degree. They're battered by the ongoing softwood lumber disputes and anti-dumping quotas, or duties, I should say. Canadian lumber, paper, and timber producers are explicitly swept into this round. The exposure? Well, many Canadian mills operate on thin margins, and they export almost exclusively to the U.S. residential construction market. Adding a 50% levy risks shutting down operations across British Columbia, Ontario, and Quebec, and even into New Brunswick. Then we look at the industrial equipment and machinery. Capital goods, electronics, and specialized industrial manufacturing machinery were directly included in the White House target lists. The exposure? Well, Canadian manufacturers supplying machinery, tools, and industrial components to U.S. factories will face near immediate displacement as U.S. buyers look for domestic or alternative international suppliers. Building materials like cement. Why? Cement and basic construction materials are specifically itemized in the tariff proclamations. The exposure? Heavy construction supplies are regional export plays, cross-border supply into the U.S. Midwest and Northeast. High freight costs combined with a 50% tariff make cross-border shipments uncompetitive overnight. And then we have the alcohol, food, and consumer goods. Why? Well, the White House cited alleged discrimination by Canadian provincial liquor boards against American alcohol as a primary driver for the Section 338 action. The exposure, Canadian distillers, wineries, and specialty food processors and niche consumer manufacturers ranging from processed foods down to sports equipment like hockey sticks face punitive retaliatory rates intended to hit consumer-facing sectors. The list is about 18 pages long. I'm sure it reads much like the list that included the island of nothing but penguins last year.
Correct.
When he announced his tariffs. The only things that weren't touched, crude oil and energy. Gee, I wonder why. Well, essential to,
I wonder why.
yeah, essential to U.S. refinery operations and domestic energy prices. But Trump says they don't need anything from Canada. Potash and critical minerals exempt. Vital inputs for U.S. agriculture and tech supply chains with limited substitutes. And core steel and aluminum excluded from 50%. They're already covered under existing Section 232 sectoral tariffs, and they're not stacked.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable. Hockey sticks, skates. There's one in there. It was grapefruit essential oil. Who knew we even manufactured grapefruit essential oils? It's just unbelievable, number of ways. So things are heating up. 30 days.
Yeah.
This is another one of his Nib's deadlines. Will he go taco? We're not sure.
Gary, yeah, you know what, Gary? I mean, I looked at the extensive list that got put out in terms of what's going to be tariffed, and most of these are actually under the Kuzma agreement as is, Gary. So,
yes,
from what I gathered, about 80% to 90% of what was on that list is actually part of Kuzma. The United States administration in Trump 1.0 actually put his stamp of approval on this deal, and I think he actually, quote unquote, called it a fantastic and great deal for everybody involved. So what? This documentation all of a sudden is not worth the paper that it's written on. We kind of suspected that happening right at the beginning of Trump 2.0, and now we're actually seeing it in color, in live action. Literally, just tear up the damn thing and throw it away. That's exactly what I'm seeing here. Is absolutely zero regards for good, honest business negotiation and adherence to contracts. So if this is not a business agreement between three countries, Gary, what is it? I mentioned Al Capone earlier today in the conversation with you. This is something that you would see out of one of those historical black and white footages that you see before a movie screening about what's going on in the United States, the world at war, and what's going on with John Dillinger and Al Capone. I mean, this is absolutely incredulous that an administration, any administration in the world, would so abhorrently just toss away agreements that were signed in very good faith, with avenues to renegotiate elements that may or may not have been, T's crossed and I's dotted to deal with it. But no, we have the administration in the United States just temper tantruming tariffs. As you mentioned, he tariffed an island full of penguins. I wonder if they actually disagreed with him or not, or were compliant. We heard Greer earlier on, mentioning that only Canada and China were the only ones that have been retaliating. Well, that's not entirely true, because the European Union and the countries within and other countries have actually renegotiated and pushed back on some of the tariffs with their own. So it wasn't just, they keeled over. No, they did not. Herein is the problem, Gary. The United States of America, and Trump in his clip there said that we don't need anything from Canada, and Canada cannot survive without the United States. Gary, the biggest trading partner on the planet is north of the United States, and it's called Canada. Okay, so when we push back, right, we're pushing back on a lot bigger trade elements than all the countries combined elsewhere, in terms of what they're allowing imported to their countries from the United States. So if we do something, of course it's going to have a much bigger clout on the United States. And I think what everybody just continues to fail to mention, whether it's the Trump administration, his underlings, his cult leaders, whoever you want to put into the picture here, even the media, even the media to a large extent, the big ones, the NBCs, the ABCs, and CBSs, they continuously forget and neglect to mention that at the end of the day, it is the American company, it is the American consumer that ends up paying for these tariffs one way or the other. And we've actually seen quite a few clips, Gary, from companies in the United States that are basically jacking up their prices to consumers because of the fact they can no longer borne the added cost of doing business by having to pay tariffs into the coffers of the U.S. administration. So who the hell wins in this? Not the guy that's going into the grocery store or the hardware store or whatnot to purchase whatever they need to do for their own personal needs or for their own business needs. It's just hurting everybody across the board. And that's what frustrates me. Every time I turn on social media or I do a little bit of research in terms of what the public in the United States are saying, and they're all saying, we're getting killed with these increased costs. And then the next question comes, well, who's paying for the tariffs? That ignorantly and uninformed, they say, well, the other countries are paying for the tariffs. No, they don't. The other countries do not pay the tariffs. It's just making it difficult for the American businessmen and the American companies to go elsewhere for their supplies and their services and whatnot, as opposed to insourcing. And China is the other one. Of course, the United States is going to be very careful what they do and say with China. And it's not just from an agricultural perspective. 30 years ago, this whole thing about offshoring, Gary, which country in the world were the lead and champions in promoting offshoring, where millions of jobs were lost in the United States? The United States of America. They offshored manufacturing to China. They offshored manufacturing and technology to Taiwan. They also offshored to India, to Bangladesh, and all these places. And hardworking people in the States, they lost their jobs. So they want to cut their cake, eat their cake, and just take the whole cake by themselves, and then whine and bitch about it. I just don't get how they continue to try to act like they're functioning as a business, getting that big deal for the American public. And it's just not happening. And they're frustrated. The administration needs a huge feather in their cap. And they want nothing more than to say, hey, we got Canada cornered and we got exactly what we wanted, because that would be a big win for them, especially with all these elections coming up, especially that he can't close off that war in the Middle East. All of these things are just slowly coming to bear in on him. And as I mentioned at the beginning, it's a tantrum, and I think he's just lashing out after the fact that he said in July he's not going to be renegotiating or renewing the Kuzma agreement. Yet it's still high up on his radar. So I think he's just personally trying to deflect more than anything else right now.
Well, again, Eddie, as I've said in the past, as far as this whole situation is concerned, as you mentioned in your comments, the fact that it includes goods that were previously exempted under the Kuzma agreement. So he has, in fact, just totally ignored that agreement and imposed these tariffs on goods that would normally be exempt. So again, I say, why are we wasting a lot of time and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, concern, getting ourselves worked up over it, when in fact, even if you do bend over and give him whatever the deal is that he wants at the time, that's only good for the amount of time that he signs it. It takes him to sign the actual paperwork, because after that happens, the second he puts the pen down or midway through the signature, he could just go right off in the other direction again and say the deal's off. He can't be trusted. He will not honor contracts. They mean nothing to him whatsoever. So why are we wasting so much time and energy? We need to continue, and maybe in addition to Carney, get more of the top cabinet ministers out and banging on doors around the world to start spreading out more. We're going to have to live with what we've got, the hand we've been dealt, and find ways around it. So far, yes, there's been pain across the country, no question, especially in Ontario, where it is really the seat of manufacturing in the country. There has been pain, and there will continue to be pain right across the line. There's nothing at this stage other than hoping governments can help to prop us up a bit, or prop up these people who are being directly impacted and help them through until we get our economy recharged and our supply chains pointed in different directions rather than all pointing south, because you can no longer depend on it. And I'm telling you right now, again, I've said this before, but don't look for, be holding on and clutching your heart, waiting until not only the midterms, but the 900 and some odd days remaining in Trump's term. You don't know what you're going to get on the other end. And I'll tell you something else, like the Democrats, I don't think they're really any better.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't, depending on who, emerges as their chosen candidates. I don't think, though, that they're any better. There have been a couple of times now that different things I've picked up on, and other people have picked up on it and pointed it out as well, where the Democrats basically are in those states, they want our money. That's what they're concerned about.
Yeah.
We miss you. We want your money. Yeah, you miss our dollar. Yes, there are some good people in the U.S., but here's the thing, Eddie. Why are so many people sitting back and not saying a word? Why are they so quiet? Remember the 60s and the protests against the Vietnam War and the protests against segregation and everything. And then into the 70s. In the 80s, there were always people in the streets letting their government know that they weren't happy with whatever it was. You hear nothing now. Has our society, and I would venture to say the same thing would happen here in Canada to a large degree. We've become so complacent. Or maybe just our logic and our brains are so overwhelmed with AI and social media and what have you that we just can't think anymore and think on our feet. Is that what it is? Or we've just resigned ourselves to just going along like sheep. Just point us in the direction, away we go.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing is, some people are suggesting it could be campaign politics on his part. I don't think so. I think he sees Canada as either a wounded prey, or at least a very weak prey, or weak and wounded. And he feels
that's there.
Go ahead.
And I think that's going to be his mistake. I agree what you're saying. He sees us as weak. Okay. And typically if you look at the bully mentality is when when the bully underestimates his prey, if you want to call it, his target, and the target punches back, the bully will whine and cry. Well, the supposed weakling punched back on a few occasions. And what does the bully do? The bully whines. The bully has other issues that he's got to contend with. The bully has a bowel movement, has to do something, and goes out there and cranks out these tariffs. I mean, you know what, Gary? I mean, in the last 3 weeks, it's been nonstop. We've got the Ambassador Bridge fiasco. We got the wildfire fiasco. We had his stupidity in the World Cup. We had his stupidity that he's pissed that his picture got removed in the official pictures of the champion Spain in the World Cup. He's pissed off at that. He's not happy with Canada bowing down, and he's getting pressure from the distillers in the United States about how much money they're losing because Canadians are no longer consuming their bourbon and their booze. He's gotta act out. He's gotta scream out. And that's what he just did, Gary. Yes, this CUSMA and this tariff thing has been ongoing for more than a year now. And he'll raise it from time to time, especially when he needs to deflect away from something or try to give himself some leverage credibility. And that's what I really think this is happening right now, Gary. This latest outrageous burst of increasing tariffs and basically throwing the CUSMA agreement in the garbage. I think this is just part of a tantrum. And you know what? Listening to Doug Ford and what Prime Minister Carney had to say, they're acknowledging the fact that the United States can't be trusted. And maybe, yes, Gary, you know what? One day the Democrats may or may not take over sooner rather than later. We may continue getting the same old, but maybe sung to a different tune, right? So I think we as Canada have to prepare for that eventuality. Trump might not be there. So he's going to have somebody else sitting in there that's just as psychotic. Or the Democrats at some point are going to win back the entire country. And just continue on the coattails of whatever President Trump has been doing. We don't know. So Carney and Ford are absolutely right. We have to find some ways of continuously diversifying ourselves to other markets above and beyond the United States. No one said ever we're going to get rid of the United States and stop doing business with them. That'd be suicide for us. That would be suicide for the United States. And I would not be surprised. We've heard Premier Ford say we're going to turn off the taps and cut off the power feeds. Boy, you want to see a military fly over our borders in quake time? Just try that, okay? And of course, energy was not part of the equation in this latest tariff fiasco. They're extremely high consumers of energy, and will never risk that. So. The timing of this maybe couldn't be any better, Gary. I mean, we've got the premiers and the prime minister sitting in Charlotte, in PEI Charlottetown, discussing what can we do as a country above and beyond us looking after our own provincial well-being. What can we do as a country, Team Canada, to continuously evolve our economic capability as an economic powerhouse? And I think that was pretty much a good chunk of the agenda. And how do we deal with the inconsistency of the American administration? And I've got faith in my vote that Carney and the premiers are going to continue pushing this Team Canada approach. And you know what? Listening to the media reports and the sound bites on the microphones and in front of cameras, I say they're pretty much arm in arm and hand in hand in terms of moving our country forward with all the provinces. Gary, you and I talked about knocking down provincial trade barriers, and one of the biggest ones and the easiest ones to get rid of is alcohol. 9 out of the 10 provinces basically signed on board right now, and typically Quebec didn't say no, but they'll say later on. They'll jump on the bandwagon. But I think this is a significant accomplishment if they can actually get rid of the not the tariffs, but the restrictions on alcohol moving between provinces. This will open up all kinds of marketplaces for every province in our country. And at the same time, it'll contribute to consumers like you and I in further being able to indulge on some of the spirits that this great country of ours and our wine producer and spirit producers can actually come up with. We don't have to depend on the United States. So if they want to tariff companies in America and the United States to discourage them from buying our booze that comes across the border, no problem. We'll just not buy any of it anyway, and just continue investing in our own spirits producers and wine producers in Canada. So it's good to see that they're together at the right time, discussing this very issue of what we're going to do with the tariffs and how we're going to further diversify. Not going to go through the entire list, Gary, because the last couple of weeks we've seen quite a few moves by Canada in terms of further strengthening our sovereignty and our economic progress. We talked about the submarines. We talked about over horizon technology from Australia. Where we know that the Canadian government is getting directly involved with military planning and the strategies as it relates to Europe. We're diversifying, Gary, and you know what? I don't think the United States of America, the administration, likes it very much. Well, I said last week, boo freaking who. You started the fight, and you know what? We're punching back, and sorry if you don't like it.
So let me ask you this, and for people watching right now as well.
Mm-hmm.
Do we retaliate? Do we impose reciprocal tariffs as well? Do you think that the Prime Minister still has negotiating room?
You know, I think there have been reciprocal tariffs put on the United States, especially when they were speaking about tariffs on our copper, on our aluminum, and so on and so forth. That there were some reciprocal tariffs put into place. Nothing to the degree that the Americans or the United States put on Canada. Nothing to that degree. So should we put more on there? I would tend to think not, because at the end of the day, the tariffs end up being paid by Canadians, by Canadian companies at the end of the day, right? Why not take our energy and why not take our focus? Why not take our planning? Why not take our strategies and continue strengthening our resolve by not having to do business with the United States of America? Find other avenues for our companies to use in terms of getting their necessary technologies, supplies, and their intellectual properties, their staff and whatnot. You know, we can find markets elsewhere in the world. The world's a very big place, and other countries would be more than happy to get around the table with Canada and discuss how we can actually make our country better and how we can make their country better by doing business with us. So, you know what, Gary? Right now I'd have to respond to you with a flat no. I don't think we should further tariff the United States. I think we can do things without having to tariff them, just by encouraging Canadians not to buy American. What else can I say? I think you and I have made personal decisions of boycotting U.S. products. The last time I checked, that Facebook page that I was on, they're getting about 1.8 million followers in terms of boycotting American product. I've been pretty successful at it, and it's not that difficult anymore, and I don't feel bad about it. Am I paying a little more in some cases? You know what? Yes. Not exorbitant amounts, but yes. But I know that my hard-earned dollar will go back into our economy by helping the local merchant or helping the Canadian-owned company. So no, I don't think tariffs would be the way to go. I think what we need to do is not go out and hurt the United States on purpose. What we're doing here is diversifying our capability and weaning ourselves from total outright dependency of the United States. So my answer is no. Well, what do you think?
Well, I'm kind of leaning in a different direction, Eddie, on this one, because we have given up on more than one occasion over the last 18 months. And frankly, I'm tired of giving in. And I think there comes a point in time where you have to draw a line in the sand. The damage is already being inflicted upon us. So if we do slap some retaliatory tariffs on some items, or up the amount of tariffs on some items, yes, it's going to hurt because we are going to pay more on our end. But somewhere along the way, you have to take a stand. And if we just roll over and take it calmly and continue doing, as you suggested, diversifying, and we have to do that anyway. Either way, even if tomorrow all of the tariffs came off, we still have to pursue diversification and take all of our eggs, or most of our eggs, out of that one basket. But I think now, Trump is like a shark coming upon a wounded fish or a human in the water that's been wounded, smells the blood, tastes the blood, and goes in for the kill. And that's exactly how he's operating at the moment. So if that's the game we're in, we can't keep taking a whack on the side of the melon every time he gets up in the morning and he's pissed off because, like at the FIFA Cup last week, some of the athletes refused to shake his hand, but they shook Carney's hand and embraced Carney as he looked on, as Trump looked on in A, amazement, and B, just like really not happy about it. We need to start standing up. He's just going to keep coming back and coming back and coming back. And either we're just going to roll over and play dead and surrender, or all of a sudden he's going to say, oh, damn, these guys are up for a fight. And
well, Gary, you know what?
we start hating them where it hurts.
Well, here's an example. Okay, great. They're getting oil from us at dirt cheap rates.
And
Well,
they
you know
haven't
what?
touched that.
Throw the freaking contract in the garbage. We're charging you 30% more as of the 20th of August. That's it.
Yep.
Exactly. That's how I think we should play. Play just as dirty, play just as tough, without even mentioning the word tariff. Just
Yep. Market.
charge.
It's the markets.
Put a surcharge in there. I think Ford was actually threatening the governors in Minnesota, in Michigan, and I forget what third state that he was going to double the price of the hydropower that he's sending over to the United States, and that raised the whole brouhaha. I think if you want to, in my opinion, you want to punch them in the nose, but they can wipe it and help themselves. Raise the price of energy. Let me tell you how quickly there's going to be some discussion. So you just made me think, Gary, do we have any leverage?
We
Hell
do.
yeah, we have leverage. We have big
Damn
leverage.
right we do.
You mentioned potash. They can't get potash out of the Middle East because of the fiasco out there, right?
Exactly.
A lot of potash comes through there. Where else are they going to get it from? From Canada? Wonderful. You know what? Let's take the American approach and price gouge.
Well, the other side of the potash issue is, too, that the Chinese are buying more of our potash now. So some of what was available for the U.S. market in the past is no longer available. And the same thing is slowly happening with the oil. So, we do have those capabilities. And what have they got to fall back on? And what argument do they have against it?
Mm-hmm.
Zero. It's our commodity. We set the price. And if you're the customer and you don't like the price and you don't want to pay it, then that's fine. We just turn off the tap and you go find it elsewhere. So we've got the oil, we have the potash, we have electricity from Ontario, and we also have electricity from Quebec going south. We all get together And that's a fair chunk of the country between Alberta, Saskatchewan, into Ontario, and Quebec, with those items fully covered. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's leverage. That's leverage on our side.
Yep, I've had it way over. And
well, Gary, if they get those pipelines finished out of Alberta, the way they're moving at lightning speed right now in terms of getting pen to paper and getting the projects rolled out, it provides Alberta with an alternative to the United States in terms of the Asian market. The possibility of extending LNG out east, out through New Brunswick and out to Europe. It just completely provides our provinces with an alternate market they can go to and set the price as opposed to continue selling it for dirt cheap to the United States. That's where our leverage is. That's where I think our leverage is, Gary. It's not the tariffs. It's going to be hardcore business decisions in negotiation with what we have and knowing what they want. And like you said, we set the price, right? So I don't know, Gary. It's tariffs. I think I'm sticking to my opinion. Tariffs are just going to hurt our people. I think we should go more. I think it's time to go. Hell with going for the jugular. Right now, let's punch him in the throat first and see how hard it takes him to regain their breath. And we're not doing it because somebody had a bowel movement. We're actually doing this strategically and knowingly in terms of what we're trying to accomplish as a country. And that, again, Gary, right to the beginning of our conversation this evening, is diversify and wean ourselves off of the American dependency that Mr. Trump so proudly boasted about from the Oval Office. So we got to get away from that. Gary, this is what we're swimming in, not just every week, every day and every hour. Something changes in the narrative where it's almost impossible to get any sort of mindful strategy around what your next step is going to be tomorrow. So the more and more time goes by, Gary, the more and more you just have to ignore and forget about what's being said down south and just do what we need to do. Because, as you mentioned, you can't trust the United States as a partner. You can't trust the United States as a business entity for obvious reasons. So we've got to find something else. And as Greg mentioned, it's going to take some time, but we got to start somewhere and start punching back. And I think we have started to punch back, not as hard, I think, as you and I would like to see it, but we got to start somewhere. And I think we have started somewhere. And who knows, Gary? I'm extremely hopeful that as a result of the meeting in PEI, that everyone is on the same page, that they need to continuously find ways to punch back as provinces, because our provinces have a pretty big say in what happens in this country, and so it should be that way. But by the same token, working hand in hand with Prime Minister Carney in getting those alliances and business elements in place. Like you said, put your ministers on the plane, damn be what Mr. Poilievre has to say about spending money. Get your people on the plane and get that damn business pipeline open to wherever you're sending them. I think not too long ago there was a whole entourage that went out to Japan with handfuls of MOUs, which is great to see. And we've got to continue doing that and allowing and opening up those chains of business for our business leaders in our country. And we have good, solid, reputable businesses that will go after that. Just gotta get that pipeline going. I'm getting tired of being sucker punched, Gary, to tell you the truth, just like you are. Enough is enough.
Going back, though, to what Greg was saying, as far as like for oil, for example, let's not forget that the refineries in Texas need our oil, and they're getting it below market value and have been. They're all set up, and it would cost millions to retool them to take and process, to be able to process lighter crude oil.
Right.
And get some heavy oil from Venezuela, but I don't think they're pushing out yet what would be needed to offset what they're getting from Canada. So again, you know what? Market prices, you guys, you've got the Strait of Hormuz shut down. So, sorry, it's supply and demand. We have the supply, you have the demand, and here is the cost. The days of the cheap oil going to Texas refineries is over.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to talk about removing all tariffs, then we can sit down and maybe work out a deal. The art of the deal.